Hi, welcome everyone. Today is Monday, the 28th of December, and this is the Knitting Expat Podcast. We are now on episode 42, which is crazy, but welcome to everyone. Well, thank you for joining me today. If you are a new viewer, thanks for checking me out, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back every week. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say happy Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you had a really lovely weekend with family and friends and lots of good food. We had a very, very, very laid back Christmas. So laid back it almost didn't feel like Christmas. But I'll talk more about that later. I'm not sure if I said, my name is Mina. You can find me on Ravelry as Mina86. You can find the podcast group on Ravelry as the Knitting Expat Podcast. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. And I post show notes for this and all previous episodes at theknittingexpat.wordpress.com. And I also sell project bags on Etsy as Mina Makes. And the shop's closed at the moment, but it will be opening in the new year, and I'll have more news about that later in the episode. So then that covers everything. I have all the places you can find me linked below the description box in the description box on YouTube, and they're also linked on the WordPress blog, the show notes blog, and on the Ravelry group. So every place that this video is embedded, you can find my links to everywhere else. So thank you to everyone for sticking with me. I'm sorry today is it's a little bit later than I normally start recording, and I've really not been sleeping well lately, so excuse the slight fogginess this morning. I wanted to start by talking about a podcast I've been enjoying lately, and now you may or may not know, I may or may not have mentioned this before, but I've been struggling to catch up with all the podcasts I follow, and so I haven't really had much chance to check out many new ones. I've only just started watching a couple of new ones, but I'm going to talk about one this week, just because otherwise I'm going to go on forever, and that is the Sticks Plus Twine podcast with Eric, and he's based out in Toronto. And I really like his podcast. It's really, they're quite short podcasts. They're like around half an hour mark usually, which is good because it's always nice to have a mixture of podcasts between like long and short ones. And he's a relatively new-ish knitter, and he's just learning how to knit socks. And it's interesting to go on his knitting journey with him. And like he mentions as well, there are a lot of female podcasters. There's a lot of female knitting podcasters, I should say, and there are a few male knitting podcasters as well, but there are fewer of them, and so it's always interesting to hear about knitting from a male perspective as well. So this is an interesting one. Make sure you go and check that out, and I will hopefully be getting a chance to catch up with Eric in person in New York next month. He's coming to Vogue Knitting Live as well, and so we've been chatting on Ravelry, like via private message on Ravelry, and sort of like coordinating times and seeing when we can catch up. So that should be fun. And so if you haven't checked out his podcast, make sure you do. I'll have it linked in the show notes. I do link every podcaster that I mention in the show notes and on the episode thread in the Ravelry group. So not just the podcast I mentioned in this section, but throughout the episode, if I mention other podcasts, I will always try and make sure to have them all linked for you. So if you want to check any of them out, you can. Right. So just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Right, so where was I? Finished objects. I think that'll be the first thing we talk about this week. Finished objects. First up, the first thing I finished this week, it actually wasn't even on my, I haven't put this on my show notes, but it is something I finished, so I'll mention it. If you remember, I may have mentioned that I had some drops baby alpaca silk left after I had done my mum's ponchette and the cowl scarf thing to go with it. And I thought I had enough to make a hat. Clearly I didn't have enough to make a hat, because I decided to do the Ricky hat, and I got about I got basically through the number of rows that it needed for the brim, and I weighed my yarn and I'd used over half of it. So I just knit a couple of extra garter stitch rows, and now this should work quite well as a ear warmer. So she can have this if she wants it. So if you're watching, you can let me know if you want this. And I'll send it to her or give it to her next time I see her. But I just thought, also because my mum has short hair, and now my hair's gone crazy. Because my mum has short hair, actually, just something covering her ears might be more convenient than a hat, which might mess up her hair. So for windy days, this might be useful in London, because she commutes on the underground to work. And Hugo's popped in, so he might come over in a bit to say hello. The next thing that I finished was the worsted weight version of my Highland Peaks shawl that I shared with you last week, and you can see the fingering weight version is hanging up there behind me. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on Hugo. So this is the worsted weight version. And yeah, it's bright, it's yellow and green, and it's warm and snuggly. And yeah, it is super comfy. I've been wearing this pretty much non-stop since it's been finished and finished blocking. So this is knit out of Malabrigo worsted. I used 6mm needles, which felt so strange, but also went incredibly fast. So the yellow is the sunset colour, and I love how sort of tonal that colourway is. You can see there's dark bits and light bits. And I'll have to show you this in a second, but the white section is pigeon, and the green is sapphire green. And yeah, the only difference between this and the smaller size, not the smaller size, the fingering weight size, is the number of rows you do is different, and also as you can see, I ran out of green, so I bound off in the cream colour, because this was literally all I had left. Not enough to finish, but I had enough of the yellow and cream. I could have chosen which one to bind off in, but I've put two versions in the pattern. If you have enough to bind off, then you can bind off in the border colour. If you don't, then you can pick one of your other two colours to bind off in. What I want to show you now is I've laid out a bunch of project bags on my bed to pick from for my for the yarn for my January sockathon. And Hugo's just gone and made himself comfortable. I'm going to try and show you this without shaking too much. There he is. You can see him. He's out on the bed, just making himself comfy. He'll probably just stay there for a while. I think he's sat on one of the project bags. Yeah, he is. Anyway, I'm going to take this off now because I am slightly overheating. I've just finished a cup of tea before I started filming. And I am wearing my Marco Polo cardigan. Again, something I've been wearing pretty much non-stop since I washed it after getting back. Because it's been so cold here, it's ridiculous. It's not cold by comparison to other places, but it's cold for here. Next finished object I have is a pair of socks, and I think I showed these socks to you guys last week. So these are the Fleechy in the Highland colourway, and again with the heel, I managed to get most of the heel out of one stripe and started it a little bit in this colour, so I've only lost one stripe on the front, but the thicknesses of the stripes doesn't change too dramatically. I think it's only 1 or 2 rows narrower than it would have been otherwise, so it actually does flow quite nicely. I'm quite happy with how that one turned out. There's 2, and I knit them and I'd turned the heel, then I didn't knit on them until we went to see Star Wars again on Christmas Day. So I took these to knit in the cinema, and I think I knit about that much during the film. So by the time we got home, I was knitting in the car on the way home, and by the time we got back, I was already on the toe decreases. So it wasn't long before that was finished. And that's pair number 39 for the year. And then the last my last finished object was my Christmas Eve cast on for the Little Bobbins Knits podcast. She hosts an annual Christmas Eve cast on for socks. And so I took part. And I showed you the yarn I was going to use. Sorry, my voice is going funny. Sorry about that. So I was using the Festival of Lights colourway by Molly of a Homespun House. And the pattern I did was my This Way That Way socks pattern, which was released early last week, I believe, or late the week before. Can't remember now. And yeah, so I cast those on Christmas Eve. I got to just before the heel on the leg on Christmas Eve. Then Christmas Day, I knit down to the heel. I didn't actually knit that much on Christmas Day on these socks because I knit mostly on the other ones. And then on Boxing Day, I turned the heel in the morning. And then again, by the evening, I was kitchening the toes. So that was a pretty productive day of knitting, I think, on Boxing Day. And yeah, so Christmas Eve socks are done. And these are all for me. And this was knit on her Olsen, on Molly's Olsen base, which is 75% BFL, 25% nylon. And it's definitely quite soft for a BFL. And it's actually probably the first BFL base that I've knit with that wasn't a high twist. Most BFL yarns are quite, well, that I've seen and knit with so far are relatively high twist. I did find, and I knit these on my high sharps 2.25mm, and I did find the yarn was a bit splitty as I was knitting with it. I split the stitches a lot more than I normally do on any other pair of socks. So that may have been because I was using my high sharps. It may have been the yarn. I'm not entirely sure. It might just be the way that I knit. But I like the colourway. I like the speckles. I like how it turned out. And yeah, and I think the pattern does show up quite nicely with it. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too if it wasn't going to be too obvious or if it wasn't going to show up too well. But it's actually showing up quite nicely. It's a more subtle pattern. It's more of a texture than a really prominent pattern with a speckled yarn. So it was interesting. I wanted to see how it would look, and I'm quite happy with that. So that's that. Those are my finished objects. For works in progress, I don't have anything on the needles at the moment, and so pair number 40. So I did 40 pairs of socks in 2015. Quite excited about that. Considering I started the year having only knit one pair of socks, to have been able to knit 40 pairs of socks this year was pretty insane. Right, so moving on to works in progress. I haven't actually worked on anything else since casting off those socks other than my Cozy Memories blanket, and even that I only did, I did 3 squares last night, and these 3. I'm not going to open up the whole blanket to show you because the rest hasn't changed. So I've added these 3 squares. Now this one, I think it's like something like a Regia or an Opal, was from Anya, who's Anya Loves Knits on Instagram. And these bottom 2 were from Emily of the Fibre Town podcast when I met up with her in November at Fiberspace. She gave me some minis. So these are 2 of hers. She's given me one more which I'm going to add on to the end here, but I just need to wind that one up. And I don't remember what this one is. I don't think even Emily remembered what this one was, but it was really lovely shades of blue. And this one, if I remember correctly now, Emily, if you're watching this, I might be getting this wrong, but if I remember correctly, you told me this was dragonfly fibres, maybe dragonfly. I remember you saying this. The colorway was called Starry Night, but which I thought was quite beautiful. But I'm not sure if I'm getting the yarn dye correct. It might be dragonfly fibres. It might not be. I'm sorry if I get it wrong, but I like the colorway. So that's all I've done, and that was literally just last night, and I finished this last square this morning before I started filming. So that's it in terms of what I've been knitting. I'm not really planning on casting on anything new this week now, for a number of reasons. One, I just want to give my hands a bit of a rest. I'll work a bit more on my Cozy Memories blanket because I haven't really worked on that at all the last couple of months. And give my hands a bit of a rest, get ready for January sockathon, sock knitting madness. And I also have quite a bit of sewing I want to do, so I'm going to dedicate most of my time this week to sewing. And so I thought I'd show you really quickly the yarns that I've picked out for the January sockathon. I've picked out 10 socks worth of yarn for now, and we will see how we do. So first up, I have these two Pans Croy colourways. So there's 2 balls of each. And so these ones are the clover colours, which I thought were really quite cool. And I actually have enough of this colourway to make 2 pairs of socks, so I might use the others to make these will be socks for my dad, and I might use the others to make socks for my father-in-law, for Perry's dad, because his birthday's on St. Patrick's Day. So I thought nice in sort of greeny colours for his birthday. And then these orange ones, which are called Canyon colours, which again, I will probably make these as socks for my dad. And if he doesn't want them, then my brother can have them. Then I have this colourway from Lavender, it's called Lavender Horizon, and it's by Shabbat Garn. It's their soft socks base. And I really like it, but it's also quite interesting with these hand-dyed yarns to see how they wind up. So I wind up my cakes, I wind up my balls into 2 cakes. And I've had someone ask me how I do that when it's in a hank. You just wind it off onto a ball winder into 1 ball, and then you put that ball on a scale and you wind off that half the weight, and then you wind the other half like that. So I hope that helped answer your question. But it's interesting, this is the same colourway, same ball of yarn, but just different halves of the skein. And it's funny how one half of the skein is much more purple and the other half is much more green. So it'll be interesting to see how these socks knit up. I have a skein of opal. This is the Opal Smile. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I don't know how that is said, but it's purples and blues and oranges. I think you can see that there. And so that's fun. I have another set of Knit Picks Felici, and this is in the Countess colourway. Beautiful purples. So that'll be another fun knit. Then I have Knit Picks hand painted straw fingering in the Koi Pond colourway, which is really fun. Really like these colours. You'll see a definite theme of orange and blue in the yarns that I've picked out for this so far. I have this skein from Andre Sue Knits, which is her OMG BFL base, and this doesn't have a colourway name because she specially dyed this for me, which is very happy about, which I was very happy about. This is 70% superwash BFL, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And this is also the only other BFL yarn that I've seen that doesn't have like a super high twist to the yarn. So it'll be interesting to see how this one knits up. This one will be socks for me. All the others will probably end up being gift socks in one way or another. Then I have this skein of I Knit or Die sock yarn. This is their 100% BFL base, and this will this is mostly dyed in this sort of like grey charcoal, and this is like a strip left undyed. And this I am going to probably knit socks for my dad. I say probably, I am going to knit socks for my dad with this. And then I have some Pants Croy in like a charcoal colour, and this is a slightly thicker yarn, so I'm going to use that for the heels on my dad's socks. Just to give it added strength, because this doesn't have any nylon in it, but BFL is a lot more hard wearing than for socks, so you can make decent socks out of them without nylon. Pair number 9 is this Lana Grossa yarn, and it's from their Chess range, and again blues and oranges and a bit of like grey and so white and black in there as well. So this I'll probably knit up as a pair of socks for my brother, maybe. We'll see how those turn out. And the last pair of socks I'm going to make will be out of Vulnervine Yarns Outlander colourway, and this is on her footsie base. This is another BFL nylon blend, and you can see, I don't know how well you can see that, but that's a very nice high twist to that yarn. And so most of the BFL that I've seen has been like this, or this one. These are both quite high twist yarns. I don't know, you can probably see it better on the Outlander, the brighter colours. But this will also be a pair of socks for me. So, yeah. So I've wound up all my yarn is ready. I had all my project bags laid out to allocate yarns to. Now Hugo is sleeping on them, but he'll move soon, I'm sure. And so that's it in terms of what I am planning, because frankly, January is just going to be socks. Apologies if that is going to be boring for you, but that is pretty much all that my month of January is going to be about, knitting socks. Moving on to knit-alongs and giveaway news. I am still hosting the Vida Cal in the group. You just need to knit any of the Vida patterns. So it's a hat, shawl, scarf option. Socks. Hat, shawl and socks. Struggling to speak. You can knit any one of those to be entered in to win prizes. There is chatter prizes and finished object prizes. There's yarn, there's a project bag, there's patterns, like I mentioned, stitch markers, I believe. You can check the thread on the Ravelry group to read all the rules for entry and stuff like that. So it's very simple. I've tried to keep the rules very laid back. And that'll be running until the end of January, and I'll be drawing for prizes at the end of the month. Then we have the January Sockathon Cal, which is starting up on Friday, on the 1st of January. You get to cast on all your socks, and that's between me and Marsha of the Very Little podcast. It's a month-long challenge between the two of us to see who can knit the most pairs of socks. And we thought it'd be fun to open up to you guys. And in my group, I think Marsha's rules are slightly different. In my group, it doesn't matter how many socks you knit. You don't have to be in a competition with us, as it were. It's just a relaxed knit along to knit socks. Marsha and I will be competing with each other, but you guys don't necessarily have to compete if you don't want to. If you just want to knit 1 or 2 pairs of socks, then that's fine. There are some rules for what types of socks would be allowed. Basically, nothing heavier than Patton's Croy, nothing heavier than a heavy fingering, no short socks. They've got to be, they don't have to be super long, like this necessarily, but they have to have like a decent cuff on them, about this length-ish. They have to have a decent cuff on them. They can't be like shorty ankle socks, is what we're saying. Just to make it fair. No children's socks, adult socks only. This is just to try and keep it fair. And those are our rules between ourselves, so we just thought it'd be the same for everyone. And there will be prizes. I'll be sharing some of the prizes during the month of January. I think I'm still waiting for a couple of things to come in. If you are interested in donating a prize for the knit along, then please do let me know. We can work something out. And what was I going to say? Oh, and if there does happen to be someone who manages to knit more pairs of socks than myself or Marsha, then I will be giving you a very special prize for that. And then we have a 3,000 subscriber giveaway at the moment. I showed you the giveaway, the prize for that last week. The prompt for that giveaway was, what are your knitting and crafting goals and ambitions for 2016? There have been some really interesting entries so far in the group. I think there's over 200 entries right now, which is amazing. That will be running until January 1st, and I will be drawing for prizes for the winner in the first podcast of the month, of the new year, rather. I finally started that knit along thread that I've been promising to do for ages. So there is now a thread in the Ravelry group saying for 2016 Cal news. And so I've gone through all the groups that I'm a member of on Ravelry, so this might not be everything, but I've gone through all the groups that I'm a member of, and I've found all the knit alongs that are running, either that have already started but are running until like the end of January or onwards, or start January 1st and run through to whenever. I haven't included any knit alongs that end on December 31st because I figure there's not much point now for those ones. But it's a 2016 Cal thread, so starts from 2016. So what I'm going to do, like I said, the thread's up. You guys can comment and write in that thread if you'd like. If there are other knit-alongs going on that I have not listed, then please let me know. Leave a comment with a link to the thread, to the knit-along thread that you are referring to, and I will edit that first post and add them in. So what I'm going to do is every couple of weeks I will update that thread with any new knit-alongs that are going on. I will, when knit-alongs finish, I will note that those are now finished, or I will delete them. I'm not quite sure yet how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try and keep that first post updated, so when you go onto that thread you can just look at the first post and see what the current knit-alongs are, which podcasts or which groups are hosting them, and there should be direct links either to the actual knit-along thread, or if the thread hasn't been set up yet, then just to the group, so you can then find it. And hopefully if you're a podcaster and you're hosting a knit-along and it's not listed, come let me know. If you are just a member of a group with a knit-along that hasn't been mentioned, come let me know. If anyone can just let me know if there's something missing from that list that you want to see on there. So hoping that will help me keep up with one of my crafting goals for next year, which I'll come to in a bit. And I thought I just wanted to share really quickly some knit-along ideas that I have for the new year, and some knit-alongs that I want to host next year, which should be good fun. There's obviously the January Sockathon. I'm also going to start from January 1st a year-long sweater knit-along. So this is just going to be it's more of a support thread, as it were, for people wanting to knit sweaters or jumpers, cardigans, whatever, just to give each other support. I've noticed in the giveaway thread that a lot of people's goals are to knit garments for themselves. So it doesn't actually have to be a sweater, it could be a top, basically any kind of garment that you would wear. And that's what that thread will be for. I have a goal regarding the number of garments I want to knit next year, so that will also help me with that. I know there are a few others. And what I'm going to do with that one is I think I would also have a finished objects thread for the sweater cowl, and every 3 months I will draw for prizes. And so yeah, I think that will be what I'm going to do. So I think 3 months is long enough for a sweater knit-along, I think. So every 3 months. So there'll be a finished objects thread, and every 3 months I will just draw from the finished objects thread for prizes. And I might do other random sort of draws for patterns or something during the month as well, during the other months. And then I'm planning on doing a shawl knit-along during February and March. I have my Across the Pond shawl, which will be released very soon, and then I have the Highland Peaks shawl, which will be coming out later in January. So I'm hoping that by February both of those will be out, and then I'm going to host a 2-month-long shawl knit-along in February and March. There's also there's another shawl knit-along going on that starts in January until the end of March, which is being co-hosted by several podcasts. And also I will be taking part in the winter camp, which is being hosted primarily by the Canadian Knitter podcast, but it's being co-hosted by several other podcasters as well. And February is their Anything for Your Neck month. So that's the theme for that month. So that just kind of made sense to do it at that time. And I have a couple of shawl designs that I want to work on, so I think I'll be working on those during February. So I think it'd be fun to have a shawl knit-along at that time, February and March. So that's my plan for that. And then I'm planning on setting up a swap within the group, and I was thinking we could do an expat swap. So basically you get to try out yarn from somewhere not local to you. So the idea would be I will open up sign-ups probably mid to end of February in the group. You'd sign up, you'd say you just say that you're interested and where you're based, and which country and city you're in. And the idea is, and whether or not you'd be able to do international postage. The idea, it would be great if everyone could do international postage, but I understand that some people international postage might be beyond their budget, and that's fine. So I'll do what I can with that. But if people can sign up that they're interested, then I can match you up with people who are not from where you are. So potentially get someone from the US matched up with someone from, I don't know, say Spain, for example. And then the idea would be to try and send the other person a yarn or something that they can't get where they are, or that is not local to them. So you could send them an American made yarn, and hopefully someone from Spain could send something that was made in Spain, or something along those lines. I'm still hashing out the specific details in my mind. So for me, it's a little bit more difficult because I can't really send someone yarn that's made over here, because there doesn't seem to be any yarn that's made over here. But my friend dyes yarn in Dubai, so I might be able to get a skein from her to send someone, try some hand dyed yarn from the Middle East. It would be different. I think that's the whole. I kind of want to get to that idea across in this swap, and there will be. So that would be the minimum requirement, would be like a skein of yarn. And then obviously it would be nice to include other goodies and other treats and things as well. But as for what else you include in your package, I will let that be between you and your swap partner to decide how much you want to send to each other, to try and keep it more fair. I don't want to kind of impose a like very stringent guidelines on what has to go into the package. I'll give some ideas as to what sort of things you can swap when I set up the thread, but at the end of the day I'll leave it up to you and your partner to decide what it is you would like to exchange with each other. And if there are a few people who are, say, within the US who don't want to pay or can't pay for international postage, then I will try and match you up with someone from another part of the country, so then you can maybe send something to each other that's local to you guys rather than necessarily internationally. I hope that made sense. So that was an idea I had, and then I thought off the back of that we could then have a expat yarn knit along, which would be most. And you don't have to take part in the swap to take part in the cal, if that makes sense. You could just basically use yarn that's not from where you are, yarn that's made somewhere else. So for example, if you're based in the UK and you knit with Opal or Regia, which is from Germany, that would count. I think a lot of us knit with yarn that's not from where we are anyway, so I think that shouldn't be too difficult. But I just thought it'd be quite fun to have a swap and then a corresponding knit along to go with it. So that'll be sort of late spring sort of time. And then over the summer, I thought I kind of want to do my rainbow knit along again, but I'm not going to call it the rainbow cal this time around, because I know Diane, the Suburban Stitcher podcast, she hosts a rainbow along, which will be in February. So I think I'm going to call mine the Right of Colour cal. I don't think that name has been taken so far. I think I did check Instagram and that hashtag is still available, so I think it will be the Right of Colour cal. Will be the summer knit along. And then I also want to do a colourwork knit along at some point, probably later in the year. It probably might be like around September-ish time. I have a couple of standard colourwork pattern ideas that I want to try and get out next year. So I think that could be quite fun. A lot of people in their ambitions for next year in the giveaway thread had mentioned that colourwork was something they wanted to try and tackle. So I think that would be a fun one to do as well. So I have about 6 knit along ideas for next year, which I think is probably enough. I might throw in a couple of other ones in the mix as well whilst we're at it, but we'll see how it goes. I just enjoy hosting knit alongs and seeing all the chatter and getting to interact with you guys. So I hope you guys will be interested in all of that. That's it for knit along and giveaway news. I'm sorry, it was a very long section this week. I think what I'm going to do is at the beginning of every month, the first podcast of every month, I will go through the knit along thread in the group, and I will just announce on the podcast the knit alongs that are currently going on, just to let you guys know. Is that something you'd be interested in hearing from me, maybe? We'll see. And then Q&A. Moving on to Q&A. I had a couple of questions this week. One was from the Lady KT19X on Ravelry, and she asks, have you ever tried spinning? No, I haven't. And I very, very specifically have decided not to try spinning, because I know it's one of those things that I would probably really enjoy doing, and I just don't have enough space in my life right now for another hobby or another fibre related thing that's just going to take over. I would really like to spin. I just think that I know myself and I know I would get frustrated with how slow spindle spinning is. And I wouldn't necessarily be interested in spinning lots of really thick, heavyweight yarns. I'd want to spin finer yarns. So I'd want to get a wheel. And I don't even want to think about trying to get a wheel over here and all the hassle that will entail and all this. So basically, I'm very consciously not trying spinning so that I don't fall down that rabbit hole. But that's not to say that I'm not interested in learning how to spin. I would love to learn how to spin. I just don't think I don't think I'm really in the right place right now to be doing that. So that's why I haven't learned to spin yet. Earlybird5 asked a question as well. She says, I have a question about using contrasting heels. How do you prevent holes in the side of the sock where you change colours? I'm on my third pair and this is the first contrasting heel I've done. I was able to fix it when weaving in ends and you can't tell. It's just annoying. Thanks. Have a Merry Christmas. Frankly, that's really the only way to deal with it, is to weave in the ends afterwards. When you change yarns for a contrasting heel, what I do anyway is I knit a few stitches with the contrasting colour, then I go back and I just tie the tail to the main colour of the rest of the sock. I just tie a small knot. That way when I come round again, I can pull that stitch quite tightly without worrying about the tail coming out. And then once I finish the sock, I turn it inside out to weave in my ends. I undo the knot and then I just weave in the ends. But I find sometimes putting that knot in can help decrease the hole that develops. So at both ends of the heel, when you add the yarn or when you cut the yarn at the end to reknit with the main colour, I just sort of tie those tails together to hold them in place so they don't go anywhere while you're knitting the sock, and then afterwards untie them and weave in the ends. And usually then if there's any holes at that point, you just close them up with the tails. I don't have anything more elaborate than that to share, I'm afraid. If someone else has any tips on how to prevent those holes developing with contrasting heels, then please feel free to share. You can answer that in the question and answer thread. It'd be great to hear if you've got any tips on that one, because I struggle with that as well sometimes. My question to you all this week is, what are you most looking forward to in the new year? What are you looking forward to in 2016? I've quite a few things now lined up for 2016 that I'm really looking forward to. And so yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear from you guys what things you're looking forward to. In terms of other things that I've mentioned this last week, I have a few events that I'm attending over the next first few months of the year. There's the January Vogue Knitting Live in New York, which I already mentioned last week and talked quite a bit about. In March, I'll be attending the Curious Handmade Country Retreat, which will be so much fun. I'm really looking forward to that now. So that'll be my first retreat, and I'm really quite excited about that. And I like the fact that it's quite a small one, so it won't be too intimidating. And then in May, I'll be back in London again for the I Knit Fandango Fibre Festival, which was the very first Fibre Festival I'd ever attended, so it'd be nice to go back there again. And so those are the knitting related events I have so far for next year that I'll be attending. And so I forgot to mention with Vogue Knitting Live, if anyone else is coming, please let me know. It'd be lovely to catch up whilst we're there. I know that Jenny of Tiny Paper Foxes and Eric of the Sticks Plus Twine podcast are hosting a joint meetup after Vogue Knitting Live on that Saturday, and I will be attending that meetup, so please do come along if you are in the city. Even if you aren't going to Vogue Knitting Live, you can still come to the meetup. There is an event on the Sticks Plus Twine Ravelry group where you can RSVP, and there are both threads in both the Tiny Paper Foxes, Jenny's podcast, and the Sticks Plus Twine podcast group, where you can also let them know that you're coming. So that should be really good fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of you guys there. I was also inspired by Carlene from the Made with Carlene Usually podcast and Andy of the Andre Sunitz podcast, who both did a bit of a year in review, a knitting year in review on their last podcasts. And I thought I'd do a bit of that really quickly, run you through my knitting stats, as it were, for the year. So the total meterage of knitting that I have done this year is actually somewhat crazy. 49,698 meters. I was 302 meters short of 50,000 meters knit this year. Basically a pair of socks, another pair of socks, and I'd have hit 50,000. But it's okay. I can live with that. So that's almost 50 kilometers worth of yarn that I've knit this year, which is bonkers. The number of skeins that I've used since May, because May was when I started using the Excel spreadsheet I've shown you weeks ago of how I track my projects and stuff. I just find it easier and quicker for me than Ravelry. I've used over 130 skeins of yarn since May. Obviously a variety of weights, but 130 skeins nonetheless is a lot. The amount of yardage, the amount of meterage that I've knit this year is the equivalent of around 124 skeins of fingering weight yarn, assuming there's approximately 400 meters in a skein of fingering weight yarn. And I know it varies slightly, but let's go with the average of 400 meters. Which is, again, sounds bonkers. I've published 10 patterns this year, which is awesome, and I have 2 more coming up soon, which is really exciting. And in terms of projects that I've knit, I have knit 29 shawls, 7 cowls/scarves, 40 pairs of socks, 4 things for children, 10 adult-sized garments, including 2 of those were the poncho thingies that I knit, which I'm counting as garments because they use almost 1,000 meters each. 21 hats, 3 sets of mittens, 9 other things. I did a few sort of like washcloths and other small things, and one is one blanket, which is my sock yarn blanket, which is a work in progress. So those are my knitting stats for the year, as it were, which I thought was interesting to look back on and see how much I'd actually done this year, which is awesome. And it's nice to know that a lot of that was gift knitting as well as personal knitting, because I mean, I don't think I'd ever used 29 shawls myself, so it's quite nice to know that I've gifted quite a few of those to people. My knitting goals for 2016, I thought I'd share that with you guys this week since I asked you guys about that last week. I'd like to knit 50 pairs of socks in 2016. I think that is definitely achievable. I will possibly knit more than that, but I don't want to put pressure on myself because I know things can change, and there might be times when I'm not going to be knitting as much, or I don't know, I don't want to burn myself out on socks by forcing myself to knit too many. I want to keep designing. I mentioned earlier that I have plans for some colourwork patterns, standard colourwork patterns I'd really like to try and get going. I've got quite a few shawls ideas in my head that I would like to get going as well. I don't know if you can see there's a little basket. Ooh, no, that's not helping. There. It's really hard to do this opposite way on camera. This little basket here is full of yarn that I've pulled out and put aside for design work, which I'm really excited about. And I also want to try designing a couple of garments for children-sized garments. I think would be a good place to start, because children don't have a lot of there's not a lot of considerations needed for shaping for children. Like, children don't have this stuff to deal with, and they don't have specific waist shaping needed or anything, so it's a very simple shape to work with, and it's smaller sizes, so I think that's a good place to start with garment designing. I think I'd like to try that as well and see how that goes. Maybe a massive flop and not work out at all, but we'll see. And I've got a few friends now who are expecting children soon, so I will have plenty of guinea pigs to try them out on. I've got my friend Steph in Dubai with her twin girls who are 3 now, which is crazy, and her youngest will be 1 in February. So again, more children to try stuff out on. So that should be. I'm looking forward to trying some stuff with that. I'd like to knit at least 6 adult garments during the year. I would like to knit more than that, but again, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I managed 10 last year, so I think 6 is definitely more than manageable. I have about, I think, 12 or 13 garment quantities, not all of them for sweaters. There are some tops worth of yarn in there, worth of yarn set aside specifically to be made into garments. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to get some of those knit up. I'd also like one of the garments to involve some sort of stranded colour work and steeking. I don't, not necessarily all over, but maybe just stranded colour work in the yoke and the cuffs and at the hem or something, and then to steek it, because I really want to try steeking and installing another zipper. I think that would be really good fun. I also want to sew a quilt. I really want to sew a quilt. I bought some charm squares last time we were in New York, and I really want to just do a simple charm square quilt. Nothing too extravagant, nothing crazy, no crazy designs or patterns. Just sew a bunch of charm squares together, get some batting and the backing. Just a very simple quilt. I want to get one done, so I've done it, and I kind of just get over that hurdle of wanting to try one but not knowing where to start, if that makes sense. Just a very simple charm square quilt, I think, would be a good place to start. I want to sew some more garments for myself. I really want to get a handle on some sewing some more things for myself. I did sew up a couple of dresses last year in 2014, but I just really haven't sewn anything for myself this year, especially since starting the project bags. All my sewing time has been dedicated to that, so I'd like to put a bit of time aside for sewing some garments. I want to work on doing some more collaborations with other people within the knitting community. I've done a few designs this year where I've collaborated with the yarn dyer, namely Vicky from Baronfuller for the shawl that I did, the Vida shawl. And I'd like to do more things like that, maybe collaborating with people for kits and things. I have a couple of those collaborations sort of coming up sometime soon that I'm sort of working with people on. But I will share more information about those as and when things start to get more finalised, if that makes sense. But I'm definitely interested in doing more of those sorts of things in the future. And I'd like to keep on top of the knit-alongs that I'm participating in. I've really fallen behind in the last 2-3 months. I really haven't participated in any knit-alongs. I've barely been able to keep on top of other podcasts, let alone chatting in their different threads and different groups and stuff. I've just been really bad at that this latter part of this year, and I kind of want to remedy that next year. And on the same note, I want to keep on top of my Ravelry projects page, because that is just so far behind now. And my final goal, and this one is very similar to a lot of goals that people have every year, and a lot of people say they want to knit from their stash, or they want to buy less yarn and work from stash more. And I feel like, okay, that's all very well saying that, but I feel like I'm a very mathematically minded person, and I kind of feel like a goal like that is very hard to say whether or not you've achieved it, because there's nothing quantifiable about it. You can't say, when you say you just want to knit from stash, well, if you buy yarn, then that technically becomes stash. So it doesn't matter then, does it? It means you still buy yarn and it's technically stash, so you're still knitting from stash effectively. So it's not that I don't think it's a good goal to have. I do, but I just think it needs to be phrased slightly differently, or maybe looked at it from a different angle. So my goal would be to knit more than I buy. So knit more skeins of yarn than I bring in, if that makes sense. So say I have 100 skeins of yarn at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, I want to have less than 100 skeins of yarn left. because I want, even if I only have 99 left, then it means I've knit more than I've brought in, because I'm never going to not buy yarn, because I don't buy yarn when I'm here, because I don't buy yarn that's available here. It's not the kind of yarn that I really want to knit with. I do sometimes order yarn online, but there again, I don't order yarn online very often because it can be quite prohibitive with shipping costs. A lot of the times I get yarn through swaps, but if I'm getting yarn through swaps, I'm usually sending yarn as part of a swap as well. So in that instance as well, again, I'm not really adding. I'm sort of, it's almost an exchange of skein for skein in my stash. But when I do travel, when I go to the US or when I go to the UK or anywhere else, I know I'm going to be buying yarn because I don't know how often I'll be going back to those places. The UK, less so. But for example, this trip that we've got coming up to New York, I don't know when it's going to be the next time we go back to the States, because after March, Perry's classes are, he picks his classes, and the classes he picks will dictate where he has to go. So the first thing after March, he's not going to be, his next 2-3 months worth of classes none of them are in New York. So we don't know when is the next time we're going to go back to New York at this point. We'll definitely be back at some point over the next year after this next trip, but I don't know when is the next time he's going to be going. So I know I'm going to be buying yarn, and I'll probably be buying too much, but I just want to know that by the end of the year I have knit more than I have bought. That's my goal. Anyway, we'll see if that works out, and I'm going to keep track of that the way I keep track of my projects. I have an Excel spreadsheet. I might do a blank spreadsheet and upload it onto the group page or something, and see for you guys if anyone wants to use a similar sort of thing. So it's almost like on Ravelry projects, but it's all collated into one place. And so you just see on one page, you see, the name of your project, what needles you've used, what yarn you've used, what day you started, what day you finished, how many yards and meters you've used, and then also I'm going to add in a column for how many skeins were used. Now, I don't count, for me anyway, partial skeins, especially of fingering weight yarn, depending on how much is left. If there's less than half a skein left, I don't usually count it as stash, because then more often than not I turn that into mini skeins, and for swaps and things. So how you keep track of that would be up to you, but that's how I'm going to use it, to keep track of the number of skeins that I've used. And then similarly, I'll keep track somewhere on the same spreadsheet the number of skeins of yarn that I bring in. So I think that would be a good way of trying to keep track of that particular goal. I just realised I've been waffling on for ages about this, but I hope some of that made some sense or was somewhat interesting for some of you guys. Sorry if it wasn't. Shop update news. I have a shop update happening on January the 2nd, which I believe is Saturday, and it will be at 9 p.m. Bahrain time, which I think now with the time difference will be 6 p.m. in the UK, and I think that's 1 p.m. in New York and 10 a.m. in Los Angeles, and I can't remember what the conversions are for Australia, but I'll have that all listed in the thread, for the project bag thread, and on the Etsy shop. But I thought I'd really quickly show you some of the project bags. And yes, this is only some of the project bags, because there are multiples of some of them. So I'm going to go through this really quickly for you guys. I have a few of these, of my micro wedge bags in this New York print, and this will be the only micro wedge bags in this update. I think there's like 3 of these. I have a couple of these little sock pouches in the men's fabric, and I won't be doing any more in this size in the future, just so you know. I have a couple in this, again, men's shirt fabric. In this, this is my medium wide wedge. Then I have this one, medium wide wedge. I have a few in the New York print. This one's got the Empire State Building here, and this is the back Chrysler Building. A few of these. Then I have this rose print one, this sort of like vintage. This is more of a canvasy fabric. which I quite like. And this is also medium wide wedge. I have raccoons in medium wide wedge, and then I have the large wide wedge. This is again a canvasy fabric, quite large print. Raccoons again in that one. The purple and grey stripes, the red and blue sort of pinstripey effect. Then I have this one, which is also canvasy material, and this was sort of like figs and plants and botanical themed. I have another one in the large wide wedge of the vintage floral. I have a large wide of the poppies. I have a large wide wedge in the London fabric, which I really love. This is the same as the one that I have. And I have a couple in the large size, so this is the same width as my large wide, but just taller. It's a couple of inches taller. So this will be good for like a sweater project. I think the large wide wedge would work for sweater projects as well, but it just depends what size sweater you're knitting. Then I have a large in the raccoon. I have an extra large wide in this print. I have an extra large wide in this print. And I think there's a couple of these ones in the extra large wide. And I have a couple of the extra large wide in this print. Okay, and that pretty much covers the shop update. There's going to be a lot of bags in the shop. What I've shown you, probably about half the number of bags that are going in, so there's quite a few. And there's a bunch of notions pouches going in as well, which I'm not going to show you now. It's all the same sort of prints, just in notion sizes. So yeah, I hope you will come join me. It's been a few months since I've had an update, so I'm really excited to have another one. I've already got a bunch of fabric all cut up for the next update. You can see it's all lined up there. I've ironed everything already. I spent Boxing Day evening, after I finished casting these off, I did all the ironing of the interfacing, sat in front of the TV with Perry. We were watching movies and just me ironing away. So yeah, I guess I should do acquisitions now. I just realised I forgot something, so I'll be back in a second. Right, so I realised I forgot something. Whilst I was in Dubai last week, I also went fabric shopping, and I picked up a bunch of stuff. Mostly I picked up lining fabrics, actually. I didn't pick up many sort of like fabrics I was thinking of using for outer fabrics, but I did pick up a couple. A couple that I picked up, one was this really fun sort of Marvel print. A bunch of the Marvel comic characters on there. And I actually sent a picture of this to Perry after I got it, and he liked it so much he asked me if I could make him pyjamas out of it. And I was like, okay, but then I had to go back and buy more fabric because I hadn't bought enough to make pyjamas, just enough for some bags. So I went back and I got more of that. And then I also got the female comic book heroes. I think these are mostly DC comics. So you got Supergirl, Batgirl, Wonder Woman. Those are the main ones that are on there. So that should be fun to be made into project bags as well. Those will be coming up at some point. I'll probably have like a superhero themed update at some point in the future. I got a really cute little card from Andy, Christmas card from Andy from RJC Knits in the post as well, which was so sweet, and I was not expecting that. Thank you so much, Andy. Then I did a swap with a lovely viewer in France, and I don't actually know if she wants me to mention her on the podcast or not. I didn't ask, but we did a swap. She's also one of my test knitters for the Vida shawl, and I went and picked up the package the other day. Ended up being held by customs, which was great, but she sent me the most wonderful package. She sent me some, and I think this is some sort of infusion, like herbal infusion. My French is not that great, and I haven't looked it up, but my limited French is telling me this is going to be some sort of tea. Either that or it's potpourri, and I'm completely wrong. But I think this is definitely some sort of tea. Then she sent me several sachets of this Christmas tea, which I'm looking forward to trying. a giant Christmas cookie, St. Strasbourg, which is awesome, which I think is where she's from. Actually, no, I know that's where she's from. She sent me some cute little stitch markers, which are in this little sachet pouch thingy. Just get hold of one. So there's a few. Let me see that. There's a little ball on the end, and there's one with a butterfly as well, which I thought was quite cute. Ooh. Don't know how well you can see that, but those are really adorable. Pop them back in the bag so I don't lose them. And then on top of all that, get that out of the way, she got me some really beautiful yarn. So there's this one, which is by Subel yarn, which from what I can gather is 100% merino, and 100 grams is 500 meters. So this is beautiful green of a light fingering weight, I'm going to say, and it looks to be a chain ply. It looks like a chain ply construction, which is really interesting. I don't think I've ever worked with a chain plied yarn before, so I'm really looking forward to trying that. And it's very subtly tonal. I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but you can sort of see it's got some lighter patches here and some darker bits there. So this would be a very beautiful drapey. This has very nice sort of drape to it. You can see that. This would be a very nice shawl, I think. And then she bought me, that's the theme of this one, a lovely skein of green single ply yarn by Villains. Is that how it's spelled? Said Villains. The colour is called Wandering the Moor, sorry. It's 70% superwash merino, 30% silk. It's a single ply, 100 grams is 400 meters. That's so beautiful. And this reminds me a lot of the Madeline Tosh yarns. It's really soft, and it's beautifully drapey. Beautiful in a shawl. That's probably what that's going to be. And yeah, just really excited by this one. So thank you so much for that. And put all these back in the box. Move the box out of the way. Okay. And then the other package I got in the mail was from a lovely viewer, Emily. Ooh. And she lives in Norway. Let's make sure I got everything up. Yeah. She lives in Norway. She contacted me a while back, and we did decided to do a swap. She actually won a prize on the podcast for the sunray shawl pattern, Nisselong rather. And she sent me this card, which got a little bit squished in the mail, but it's beautiful. The Northern Lights. She lives in northern Norway, and basically, just the Northern Lights are. She sees them all the time, I guess, because of where she lives. And yeah, she wrote me a really lovely message on the back about the stuff that she'd sent me. So she sent me this very cute little troll, Norwegian troll, I guess. It's very cute with the Norwegian flag, and I just thought that was really cute. She said there was no real rhyme or reason for this one, other than the fact that she thought it was cute. And she also sent me this bow, the ribbon. She gave me a little explanation for this. I'm trying to find it. So I put in this hair bow I've made. The pattern is from one of the Norwegian bunad, which is a national costume. And this one is from her area, and it's the one that she has. It's called Nordlands bunad. And she says, I hope you like it. And I do. I love it. It's really adorable. I think that's so sweet. Just pop that in my hair, shall I? Leave that in there, I think. Yeah, she sent me some awesome minis. I'm just going to show you them all together. So she sent me these wonderful minis. There you go. And there's a mixture in here. There's a Norwegian dyer. This is Osterman Step. This one's Volmais. This one's also Volmais, which is awesome. I love these colours. This one is Trekking Zitron, or Zitron Trekking. And this is Dale Garn in the woodpecker colourway, I think. Which is awesome, beautiful, love those. And she sent me this, it looks like a single ply sock yarn, Nautilus superwash wool. It's 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon. It's Viking of Norway. It's the Northern Lights colour, I think. She says, this yarn is from Viking, a big Norwegian company. It's called Northern Lights, and I thought you might like it, which I do, thank you. And it's beautiful, sort of like a gradient from oranges to blacks to reds and stuff in there as well, which would be quite fun to see knit up. And then the best thing that she sent me, and honestly I cannot believe she did this, is a skein of yarn from a Norwegian dyer, indie dyer called Magspiggen Garn. That's her tag, that's the info on the back. Magspiggen Garn, I think. And it's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 meters in 100 grams. I can't pronounce the colorway name because it's in Norwegian. I'm not even going to try. And she said she actually contacted the dyer and got this yarn custom made for me because she knew how much I loved orange and blue, which I just thought was incredible. Thank you so much, Emily. That's just, it's so soft and it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I love these colours. These are literally my favourite colours, and these will be very special socks for myself. No one else is getting this. So thank you so much. And I'm so sorry, Emily, I haven't posted your package yet, but it will be coming to you soon. I have everything set aside to wrap up. I just haven't got around to it yet, but I will. This week it'll be in the mail to you, I promise. So yeah, so that pretty much covers my acquisitions. I don't actually have all that much to share for week in review this week. It's not been all that exciting a week, as it were. It's been raining a lot, which is weird for over here. Like, it's not all that weird really, but it rained really heavily Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We lost water pressure on Christmas Eve, which was fun. We got that fixed. Then we had to get some tiles replaced in our hallway because they'd come up. It's just been really cold. We live in a house that's got tile floors throughout. There's only air conditioning, there's no heating, so it gets very cold. Even though it's not really all that cold temperature wise, it feels very cold inside the house. So I'm always wearing a cardigan at the moment, or a shawl or both when I'm at home. And so yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, we went to see Star Wars on Christmas Day in the morning. We were the first ones in the theatre, but there were quite a few other people who came as well, which was quite fun. And yeah, we just hung out on Boxing Day, hung out on Christmas Day. We didn't really do much, to be honest. It didn't feel very much. It didn't feel very Christmassy. We had pizza for dinner on Christmas Day. But it was very good pizza, so there's no complaining there. That pretty much sums it up, really, I think. I'm going to wrap it up here now. I've been blabbering on for ages. My throat has gone sore. But thank you so much to everyone who was so... who left me such lovely comments last week about the changing the day of my podcasting. I really appreciate that. That's so sweet of you all. I think I probably will. I'm not sure if next week will be the first episode of the new year, so I'm not sure if that will be a Wednesday one or a Monday one yet. I will probably do it on Monday because I'm announcing the winner for the 3,000 subscriber giveaway, and I want to give you that person at least a couple of days a chance to let me know so I can post it to them before I leave on at the end of the week that week. So yeah, if I did it on the Wednesday, the person wouldn't have much time to get in touch with me, so I'm going to try and get that one on a Monday, I think, and then from there on it'll be Wednesdays, I imagine. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for checking me out. If you have any questions for me, there's a thread in the Ravelry group where you can post your questions. And yeah, I hope you'll come over and join in the chatter and the knit-alongs and all the fun in the Ravelry group. So thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely week. Have a wonderful new year. And yeah, see you all in 2016. Bye.